Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, a European quarterly magazine, still in print, but also online. We have a huge LinkedIn group, I think over 60,000 members, all supply chain practitioners and no bots. And I'm also the architect of the SCM IT Supermap Europe. We'll talk about it later. In the next 60 minutes, we're going to have a live discussion about how to choose supply chain software in the age of AI. And with me, I have two experts on this matter. First, Hans van der Drift. He is partner at Involvation, background starting in Unilever for 15 years. So he has actually implemented SAP, APO, and that kind of stuff. So welcome, Hans.
Thank you.
And you do a lot of stuff, in this, a lot of software selection for companies, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. So we do process consulting mainly, organizations, but specifically SAP IBP territory, of course, you can't do without systems. So the systems aspect is always there. Could be their current systems, or every now and then also we need to work with them to find the best fit new solution.
Yeah. And you took the software agnostic, so you don't have any dependencies, implemented software, or that kind of
That's correct.
partnerships. Yeah. Right. All right. And next to Hans, we have Jasper van Rijn, Managing Director, IG&H. So IG&H, you also do a lot of software selections, but you do more than that with IG&H.
Yes, that's correct. So we typically help clients realizing supply chain transformations. So that begins often with strategy and then all the way down to really making change happen. And of course, you need technology for that. And the way we support that is twofold. So we indeed help clients with selecting, evaluating different software solutions that are out there in the market in supply chain. But we also help them in when needed, when fit, build or develop own solutions. Yeah. And so we can do both in that respect, indeed. And it's interesting, of course, to also in this session today to discuss some of the pros and cons, right, with each of the methods available.
Right, and you have a background also in supply chain. You started out with Dow, and you have done the real work. And later on,
I've spent a lifetime in supply chain, 25 years, first half indeed working for a major chemical company, different supply chain roles, sitting on the other side of the table, so to say, and then indeed the last 15 years as a consultant in different industries involved. Exactly, yeah.
All right, before we dive deep into the matter of selecting supply chain software in the age of AI, a few household matters. So this webinar is being recorded. It will be made available on YouTube. You can download the PDF of the slides within 48 hours. The whole audience is on mute. You can use and interact the chat functionality. You have it open on the right side. So you can chat and to say hi, whatever. And most of the time the question is, is it being recorded? Yes, it is. So, but if you have real questions, please use the small text bubble one down below, and I will track down the questions. And if these questions are in line of the conversation I will be having with Hans and Jasper, I will ask these questions immediately. If not, we have a Q&A at the end. And if you still have some more questions or have needs to have discussion with us, please sit down in the virtual lounge right after this. So after the hour, after the 60 minutes, the three of us will be sitting down at table 1 in the virtual lounge. We don't bite, so if you have some real questions, please do sit down with us by that time. All right, we do put off our camera right now. Basically, you can enlarge your screen to have a better view on the slides. All right. Before we get into deep, maybe a quick introduction briefly about Involvation. Maybe Hans, you can kick off a bit more. You already said some things.
Yeah, I'm sure I can. So for those of you who do not know Involvation, we specialize in supply chain management, specifically the more strategic tactical topics like network optimization, S&P IBP, probably the biggest topic. And like just explained, very often linked with digital, what we now call digital planning. So working with solution providers to either find the best fit, optimize current solutions, etc. And then supply chain resilience, customer-centric supply chain is the other topics. Like you said, we're independent, so we're software agnostic. Focus next to the content quite a lot on change management as the sort of second track in any big transformation project. And we're really proud on our very loyal customer base, ranging from sort of mid-sized Dutch companies all the way up to Coca-Cola, which is one of our bigger customers, largest business-to-business supply chain in the world that we work for. Maybe last thing to say is that we like to work together with our customers. So we are a relatively small team, 20 people only. But we do very, very large projects, and the way we do that is that we bring in only our expertise and structures, etc. And then we look at our customer teams as our teams, with the reason that we believe that the solutions that we then deliver will be much more sustainable than if we would do it all ourselves.
Yeah, and one thing, you are the co-developer of the Fresh Connection, basically that an SNOP simulation with a factory with 4 roles. You have other flavors already developed, and also in the age of AI, you also do a lot of developments of creating this serious gaming into a digital format, haven't you, Hans?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we started that in our consulting practice, but then we also applied it in our supply chain academies, where we do experiences, so experiential learning. Fresh Connection probably the best known, but next to another whole range of serious games, where we find that works a lot better than trying to explain everything via PowerPoint, which has its limits, as everybody knows. And we find that, once you get the message across via a serious game, people will never forget. So it's much more powerful.
All right. About PowerPoint, the next slide. So, maybe you can explain, Jasper, a bit more about IG&H.
It's a nice little bridge. Yeah. So IG&H, it's a company that's nowadays 800-900 FTE large, growing rapidly in the past 5-6 years. We are active in 3 sectors in total. So we have been active in financial services, healthcare, and retail, FMCG, industrial logistics as a third sector for the past 35 years. Really believe in deep sector insidership as a starting point. Within industry, retail, and products, one of the key offerings is digital supply chain. We, as I said, I guess the common denominator for IG&H is that we help clients realize end-to-end transformations that has a strong digital or technology component nowadays. And then, as I said, we can either build the solutions or implement solutions from some of our partners. We have a few key technology partnerships to support us within supply chain, as you can see here on the screen, but also more generically with partners like Microsoft. And altogether, that gives us an ability to help clients in selecting or implementing the type of software, the type of solution that they need. Yeah.
And next to this, Supply Chain Media is partnering with IG&H, for a few years. So we are together. We create the top 28 Supply Chain Executive Europe, and we do the same thing for the top 26 for the Netherlands. So basically, we scrape internet to do a lot of AI magic to get this overview, and then we have a methodology to come up with this top 28 on Supply Chain Executive Europe. And so that's also one of the things we are partnering with IG&H. Yeah. All right. So Jasper, maybe you said it all right, about your supply chain consultancy format and solutions. So maybe you can say top down. So what is the most important thing to start with software selection?
I think if you really talk about software selection, for supply chain, then I really think the first thing that we talk to with our clients is fundamentally what what features, what problems, what value are you looking to solve? And not only today, but also tomorrow. So I think once you start the route of digitization, I think that is a key starting point. And for us, that really means often either in supply chain or beyond, that we look at what are your differentiating capabilities. So in what areas do you want to excel, and in what areas are you okay to be at par with competitors, and how does that drive, requirements that you want to have included in your software? And I think that starting point helps so much in decision making and choices that then are coming at you along the way.
So Jasper, maybe you can jump in also, Hans. But I see AI is the topic for CEOs to discuss, to improve business wise. That's one thing. What I often see is that there might be budget within a company for AI. So marketing, sales, finance is jumping on that budget to say, okay, we want a piece of the pie because budget might be there. In my experience, supply chain people are not the best people to sell their project as AI for supply chain improvement, digitalization, and that kind of stuff. Hans, do you concur or?
Yeah, I fully agree. Yeah. So I think the question always should be reversed. So is it supply chain that's trying to push AI? Well, I don't know. Yeah. I think that what's written out what's spelled out on the slide here is that you always start from strategy, the process side, what are you trying to achieve, and then you look at how AI could support. There is obviously a bit of a technology push at this point in time, so it's good to look at it from both ways. But if somebody from supply chain would come to me and say we need to maximize AI usage in our company, I say, well, I don't know. Why would I? Let's start with the business case first, and then reverse the question.
Yeah. Jasper, do you see that that there might be AI budget within companies, because CEO think we should jump on this bandwagon? Do you also encounter this kind of feeling?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a little bit two sides with it. So I think in supply chain, typically we are quite aware that if we make such investments, there needs to be an impact, typically cost savings or maybe availability that is improved. But I think in general, maybe the willingness to experiment, to try something new maybe is more outside of supply chain, typically found than within supply chain. It's almost the nature, I would say. Yeah.
No, it's interesting, and we'll take it further down there. So get back to the funnel or to the process of software selection. So what are the major steps?
So I think we have a slide indeed, and you're showing it. I think the major steps are quite typical. We always begin, of course, with developing a long list of potential solutions that can be addressed, right, based on, of course, an initial set of requirements that you want to have fulfilled, that you determine together, and you from there on go into a short list where you get more active involvement from the vendors, showcasing what they can do, what they can deliver, and then you go all the way down this funnel. I think that in itself, and I'm Hans also interested how you look at it, has been around for a while, this process and this approach on how you go about software selection. I think what's interesting to see is how with the arrival of ChatGPT, Copilot, the large language models, how more quickly one now can go and establish the long list and do your market research really more effectively, I think. But still often need, which makes maybe the judgment, how do you then define the long list to short list, and maybe even a little bit more complicated.
So I'm using, of course, ChatGPT and the likes for my analysis, but SCM IT Super Map, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So yes, it might be easier, but even the LLMs are overlooking new players easily. So so you have to be careful about that. So there's one thing. So there are more and more new players with the rise of AI. You see more and more players popping up. So it's getting easier to develop software. So one thing. So that's what I see. Yeah. It's interesting here. You said at the end with the evaluation phase, traditionally you end up with 2 or 3 main candidates, and then you prescribe a process and you get a live demo. Yeah. What we are doing since 2 years ago, we created IT Demo Day, and I advise people do a demo as soon as possible to get a flavor of what's happening in the world, what's happening in new applications. Because also 2 weeks ago we were at a major retailer in the Netherlands, IG&H and myself. I advise do look around. Have a demo of new players, so you see the new flavors. What is new? What are they thinking that might be new? Otherwise, the pre-described demos at the end will probably look quite similar.
Yeah, I think that's all super useful, Martijn. I think the IT Demo Day, great invention. Using chat to make your long list, maybe even try and work towards your short list. I think it's really useful. Having said that, I think all these tools, all these ways of making a sub-selection will struggle to get past the phase of the happy flow demos. The tool, our tool can do everything basically. Even in an RFI stage, we find that if you ask for functional requirements, what can it, and see whether they can meet it, I have hardly ever seen a red cross. We can't do this. Everybody can always do anything, and that's what the generic tools and ways of selecting will show you. I think so this flow that we see here, I think everybody will use something like this. Yeah. But the real power and the quality of the decision making that sits behind it. What's really there, and that will, I think, be difficult to get out of the general tools.
Yeah.
A question for the audience.
Martijn, if I may respond to that, I think I fully agree with what Hans is saying. Mm-hmm. And I think a typical countermeasure is to have referrals, right? Having talks with or example cases that you do this later on in the process with other implementations proposed by that software vendor, which can maybe reveal some of those flaws, Hans, if you will. But I agree, because you never see those red flags, and especially maybe since we're talking supply chain here, I find it in WMS and in those kind of solutions that a lot of promises are often made, but then often the implementation then is still quite
tedious and difficult.
Yeah, exactly, because a lot of the detailed use cases and requirements that you need to have met are have to be customized.
Yeah. One thing, I had Abdulaziz Salah, CCO of Kimberly-Clark, at an event on stage, and he said, if you ask for referrals, you will get them from the vendors, but don't go to the project managers. Go to the actual users of this software, because the project managers are always happy that they have finalized their project and that kind of stuff. Before we get to another thing, a question: do you address AI and ML combined, or do you also address agentic AI? Yes, we will. So don't worry, we go into the agentic AI phase and we distinction all of that. So that's a question from an architect, IT architect, considering this. Jasper, moving forward, what is the role of software and how do you address this?
I think that's quite a big question to ask, Martijn. What is the role of software and how do you address this? I think what's interesting, so we're now actually supporting a client. You referred it already in software selection in the domain of planning. Let me summarize it like that. Mm-hmm. And I think we have quite an active discussion there. More fundamentally, is do you still go out of the box? So you select the software like whatever here, Relex or Blue Yonder, or one of the many that best fits your requirements, or do you and then accept that it fits with a certain number of your requirements, and the rest, often you still have some degree of customization needed? Or do you actually nowadays say, okay, with what's possible in fast coding, vibe coding, I actually go after it myself and deliver exactly then the requirements that I need? And we very often have this discussion with clients, and I think it's very interesting to see with the rapid development that's going on where this will lead us. And I personally believe that for some of the areas where we're talking systems of record, I think you will show a slide that displays that, where there's a low level of innovation required, that out of the box, fully tested, fully not just straight through processing tested software is still a very logical choice to implement.
So we'll get to this point, but you show here, in the slide, the Magic Quadrant by Gartner on the left side. To my point, some companies don't know in which Magic Quadrant to look for in first place. And in second place, Gartner analysts in the late 90s, confessed to me, these Magic Quadrants are never meant to be used for software selection. It's for the software vendors on themselves. How do I do it compared to others? So, it's very... dangerous, I would say, to just look at the leaders in the upper right quadrant. Oh, let's take the ones in the leading quadrant and forget the rest.
Yeah, I agree, Martijn. So I think if you're going through a comparison software selection process, I think the answer is to have a good combination of the different type of options that you have on the table. And also, I think it's indeed like you're saying. So it can be a starting point, Gartner, and at least to ensure you have a good starting list. But I think to the extent it fits to your requirements, your sector, is these kind of questions you really need to ask before you add them to your long list, I would say. Yeah.
Hans, are you using the Magic Quadrants at all?
Yeah, well, hardly, to be honest. We take a look. Obviously, we know the quadrants, but I think they are not fully objective, because I think it's sort of publicly known that if you pay more, you get into the quadrant. If you don't, then you might not be there. So yes, we scan whether we missed something, which hardly ever happens, but we don't use it actively. Even to set up our long lists. So we take a quick look, but other than that, quite limited. Again, because you will struggle to get behind the generic picture, very sort of high-level statements about where, and that can be useful. But I think we see our role much more into the details, into the expert level, that I don't think the quadrants achieve.
So Jasper, you mentioned already, you have the current software functionality of the vendors. So how do you go about for the future?
I think that's indeed a very, very interesting question, Martijn. I think if I look at the recent selections that we've accommodated, I think if you look at what the business leaders will say is, okay, I need software that meets all the requirements, of course, but also allows some flexibility going for what the future may hold in terms of requirements. And especially, I think in the light of the rapid development that takes place now, or is possible to take place now, I'm a big, I would say fan, but that's maybe not the right word. But I think the level of the level to which software vendors are innovating, are spending, let's say, real, investments on improving their software, in installing agents, these kind of things. I think is for me is so important that you have a partner with you that that will continue to innovate alongside with you, as it's so I truly believe that especially the interfacing will change so much in the next 5 years. And I think that's maybe a more of a qualitative decision criteria when you go into these processes. But for me, it's a key one. Yeah.
So on the slide, you say on one, what is your strategic direction for your company, and the differentiation on one hand. Another, what is the roadmap of the vendors?
Exactly.
And do they connect? Is there a fit in the industry, in your geography? AI development.
So speaking to this 2 slides specific, so my point is about the middle one here. Right? So build for continuous innovation. That you have a vendor that fits that rationale, that principle. And of course, as I mentioned before, I think the first key starting point again is that you identify software that's let me take a step back. That actually that you begin with understanding what are the capabilities that you want to excel in, and what are the capabilities that you don't need to excel in, and really understand and make those hard choices that then drive your selection process. So starting with strategic differentiation, really, that's what it means, and I think it's so important. Otherwise, and Hans, I'm curious to hear how you look at that. When you go into collecting the requirements, if you ask what people want, the list becomes endless, right? Yeah. So you need to have a clear guidance and a clear direction. What is for us differentiating and what is not? So you can say yes or no to those lists.
Yeah, and I can only build on that, Jasper, because I think we in many cases even stopped making the endless lists with all the basic functionalities that we know everybody can offer. Yeah, so we can ask, of course, it takes time from everybody, and it's not going to teach you anything, because we know that everybody can do the basics. So that part we sort of skip. So we start, like you suggest also in this slide at the top. I mean, what are going to be the main differentiators that you're going to be looking for from a company point of view? What you're trying to achieve, and therefore what does the software need to do today, but also in future? Because when you select and implement software, it means maybe not a partner for life, but it's at least for the next 5, 6, 7 years. Big investments, big projects. So you better think ahead as well. So it needs to fit in the strategy, and it also needs to fit with the vendor in terms of mindset, innovation, etc.
Hans, I think that elephants are doing it with elephants. With the Magic Quadrant and the vendor mentions over there, they are mainly targeted of big multinationals, and on the other hand, you have the small companies. Do you see something like the mid-sized companies are the most complex ones and the most difficult ones to select for?
No, I don't know to select for. I think you're getting more options now, because I think we almost a while ago stopped making long lists and focused as quickly as possible on a short list, because I think we've got quite a good overview of the market and should be able to very quickly focus on the vendors and suppliers that will be really relevant. But of course, because of all the recent developments, specifically all the scale-ups with great ideas, functionalities that may not be, from a functional point of view, might be interesting even for the multinationals, but they will probably not at this stage put their life into the hands of a company that only started last year. So you start to see a bit more differentiation, where maybe the smaller companies could get an edge because they can benefit from the most advanced startups with the innovative ideas. So it starts to differentiate a bit more than it used to be.
Okay. Moving on, like I said, I'm the architect of SCM Software Map Europe. So I'm developing the software map since 2011. So I get a lot of input from all these vendors to explain this. I don't go into deep. But basically, you see ERP, WMS, TMS, etc. And based on the input and the knowledge from the vendors about their implementations, so they only get software stations if they have enough implementations in certain areas. So there are thresholds. It's not doesn't matter, we offer this so you get a software station. No, they have to prove that I have enough implementation in Europe live to get a subway station on this. So this is what I've done since 2011. I publish it every year. I do it also in the Netherlands for the Dutch version. So this is the latest version just published last month. And what I see here, and maybe to highlight this, I think the most important change since last year is the rise of digital supply chain twins. So I highlighted a few vendors, and they're coming from different directions. So Celonis is coming from process mining in the SAP world, coming from Germany, and now they have also going into supply chain, creating a digital twin. Sophos and Optologic, also a bit from the network design, going into a digital twin area. And Blue Crux, originally more like a consultancy firm, creating their own applications. They've done it in Anaplan, etc. But now they're also moving with their own application in the digital twin area. And last but not least, Air Technology, decision intelligence, applying agentic AI on level, especially within large multinationals, within Mars, Pet Food, and Unilever. So they all, converge in the area of digital supply chain twins. Hans, we did a webinar with a colleague of yours that you see next to SNP software for the process of SNP. You see more and more needs for a digital twin to get a better grasp on, if we cannot match supply and demand either way. So that's also a new flavor in the process of SNP next to the SNP software.
Yeah, I fully agree. So I'm not sure whether it's driven by the needs, but this is really an area where you see that technology now enables something that we would have liked to do 10 years ago already, which is much more dynamic and fast decision making, also in the network and in the network design part. So where the classical model was to once every so many years run a big project to re-optimize your distribution structure or to maybe reallocate production volumes, etc. And then implement it for 2 years, and then 5 years later you do this exercise again. This has really changed because, as you know, we work together with Optologic because we need a tool to do network studies, and we think this is one of the more advanced ones to work with. And using this type of tooling, we can now make and integrate network optimization in your IBP process. Data handling so much simpler. It's also much faster that you can reallocate volumes, for example, in your IBP process almost live in your meetings using the digital twin, fully database, let it optimize and get a great decision support, which was not even possible 2-3 years ago, but now it is.
No, basically, Gardner mentioned, I think 3 years ago, that the digital twin was on the top of the hype cycle. But now we actually see some needs of a digital twin. So we are organizing a digital twin demo day on October 9th, and we'll do it at Schiphol, Amsterdam. We have a lot of companies already registered to join this event, where we'll see 5 live demos of digital twins. So we actually see the need here happening, and so that's what we see here. And another thing is the winner of this year's European Supply Chain Startup Contest, part of our Innovate event, is Connecti. That's a Dutch startup, and they came from the environment of Celonis, business process mining, but now they have created a digital twin, and they're doing marvelous, interesting stuff as a startup. They only exist for 2-3 years. So Connecti is an interesting new flavor, a new kid on the block in a digital twin area. And one thing, that's one thing. Another thing, what we see here, when you look at this maturity matrix, we do that since 2018. We follow all kind of supply chain startups in Europe, all software related. So no hardware, only software. And we have analyzed more than 250 supply chain startups since 2018. And you see all of them here on this map are, basically cloud native and have all kind of AI tooling in it. Some are more agentic AI, some are using AI for forecasting, etc. So you see in the demand planning and forecasting, you see all kind of startups and scale-ups using AI. So that's what we see now. So AI is all over the place with his startups, and that might be of interest to see, what is happening in the market, and you see this kind of new players on the block, just being around for a few years, creating interesting stuff in the last 2 years. And it's quite amazing to me, and I don't know what you think of it, Jasper and Hans, that these software startups are coming up quite rapidly.
Yeah.
Anything for you? Yeah?
Sorry, I can only agree with that, Martijn. Yeah, so I think again, there's lots of startups that understand AI really well. If they can combine that with domain expertise, then of course they can build relatively quickly certain agents or decision support tooling that maybe much faster than you were able to do, I don't know, 6 months ago. So I'm not surprised that this is an area where you see lots of startups growing really quickly. Really curious to learn which ones are going to be there in the next few years, but some of them I'm sure are going to be really successful.
I agree, and it's the combination of the solution with the domain expertise, as you put it, Hans. Maybe that's also interesting to see how that develops in the course of the next, let's say, 5 years. If you see more and more focused solutions for certain domains, and that better fit than those specific requirements. And if I think that would be very exciting, actually. Yeah.
And another thing is,
Martijn, I think we do see a lot of startups in what you call here in carbon accounting and in sourcing supplier compliance and traceability. I think it's been very busy on that side, I would say, the last 5 years. It sort of shows also in the number of startups you show here on your map. I think we definitely see that.
And another thing is, I followed, I follow all these startups since 2018 quite actively. And a good example for me is, Garvis. I know Garvis for when they started, and they have been acquired by Logility. So you see also, the bigger players are also looking at this map, which one might be fitting for us to acquire if we want to enhance certain functionality and some technology, a new way of thinking. So that's what I also see. But maybe if you look at this, and this is a slide already, I think 15 years ago, Gartner introduced the base layered application strategy. There were more about words than pictures. So we created this illustration on the left ourselves, explaining what Gartner meant. So basically what you see, you have your system of records down below. You have your ERP, and most of the companies, bigger ones, have several instances and maybe also some legacy systems that's very old. And then in the middle, they have the systems of differentiation. You see your planning systems where you have your optimization. And off top, you have your system of innovation. And back then, 15 years ago, we didn't talk about AI. But I think this is still valid. So Hans, what is it when you look at this picture? What is your take on this?
Yeah, so I think the layer structure is really interesting. I read an article of the CEO of Anaplan. Of course, you need to be a little bit careful because I'm sure he's biased, but he was basically explaining a view that we share quite almost completely, which is this layer structure we believe is going to be there, where sort of, I don't know whether it's the systems of record, but this is your sort of base systems, transactional, your data model behind it. That's going to be the basis, the foundation. And that's I don't think it's going to change a lot in because of AI technology. And then you build on that sort of an optimization layer, mathematical, classic optimization, well proven, it works fine, and that's sort of the solid foundation that you will see, I think, in future in any software, in any software stack. But then on top of that, what it's called here systems of innovation, this is where things start to change. Because with AI, with vibe coding, with AI agents, this part gets much much easier to develop new functionalities in whatever way. So I think they will all be building on that solid structure that's well proven. That's not going to change all that much. But both on the data handling side, on the functionality part, on the decision support, this is where you see a very rapid development enabled by large language models, by AI in general. That wasn't there a few years ago, but that is now going to change the world quite quickly.
So what I also translated, and this is something an illustration from 2020 we created. You see also different layers in planning. The orders coming in at the instance level, and they go into your order system, and then you have the next level is your sales and operation execution, where you have your production, warehouse, transport, purchase, and replenishment orders, and then you have your SNOP and IBP, and on top you have your end-to-end planning, and you look at the market, supply side, demand side. So this is my view, and I see the digital twins both on a top end, your network design, but maybe also on the execution area. So if you look at that, Jasper, when you talk about, say, the retailer, you are currently looking for supply chain planning software. Do they also recognize this kind of layers in plannings and the planning systems?
Yes, I think very much so. They call it a bit differently, right? This is maybe in terms of terminology, more manufacturing related. Retail has its own slang, if you will. But besides that, I think the layered approach is very, very relevant. I think the more you go from level 1 to level 5, there's maybe more room for differentiating or a need for differentiation, probably. So we also do a lot of support on selecting and on ERP platforms, for instance. I think it's there your previous slide. Just to go back for a few seconds on where do you want to innovate, and where do you differentiate, and where do you just record, to put it simply. I think it's so important to be so clear on that, and to also when you go into the implementation phase later on, to be so strict in avoiding any unnecessary customizations, right? Just to briefly reflect on that.
Yeah, and if we look at this, when we look, the step from SNOP, volume based, to IBP, financially based, you also see new players coming in, like Board and Anaplan, coming from the financial side, moving into IBP. So that's also where it's blurring. And on top, I know, IG&H, you are scraping a lot of data for fashion retailers, external data. That's the top of the T with the market demand, etc. And of course, you have your balconies on the lower end, also to some extent. But I see on top, you see looking out of external data, how to use it for your planning. I see that's also evolving, and then it's blurring and more company or industry specific. When I see one thing you mentioned, Jasper, you're busy for a case in the retail, and you are doing a project. What's the role of the current company IT portfolio? So we created this last year, so an overview of what is all available from the lower end, your system of record or ERP, moving up, execution, planning, and analytics, etc. Left is your sourcing side, and right is your commercial side with your CRM and your web shop, etc. How important is it to map the current company IT portfolio? Because I think you need to have an overview what a big retail company already has in place and what should be replaced. And that's also what I think might be a challenge.
Yeah, I think maybe two thoughts to that question. So of course you need an overview of your architecture. What do you have, and what is doing what? And I think there's one discussion that precedes when you go software selection, especially if it's more fundamental, and in terms of what type of approach, right, type of strategy do you go for, right? Best of breed, for instance. And what's the appropriate IT supporting model for that? We didn't talk about it much, but I think the two go hand in hand. That's one. But then secondly, what we also see more and more, and that links a little bit to your digital twin slide that you showed previously. I think what we now see more and more, that this architecture actually becomes a digital architecture, right? That you show what systems are supporting what processes, and therefore what roles are then involved in executing those processes. So once you start lifting one of these elements out of this map, it becomes like spaghetti, right? I think everyone on the call will recognize that you disentangle and it becomes difficult, right? And when you have that in a digital platform, then you can much better prepare for that realization phase, if I could call it like that.
Yeah.
So I think the next step to your architecture map is to actually have a digital version of it, Martijn, would be my challenge back.
So basically, people can download this company IT portfolio and fill it out themselves. So I've seen companies do it. I know a major food manufacturing and multinationals doing this, but they do it for the different divisions and also for the different geographies. What kind of ERP do they have? What kind of APS? In some areas, it's a portfolio with the blue ones. They have one portfolio. In some instances, there are pockets of different kind of things. So that's how companies are using this. Another thing, what I see now, and this is getting back to digital twin. So where are they coming from? Business process mining, Celonis, Connecti, data lake is needed, and in some areas, so like Air Technology is coining the decision intelligent platform, scraping applications to apply agentic AI. So that's what you see there. And now I can visualize and explain how Air Technology works, how Celonis works, how Connecti works. So Connecti is also connecting WMS for certain customers, sometimes a TMS. So basically, this kind of overview explains in a practical sense what kind of application do you access to have data, etc., for digital twin purposes. And considering the data lake, I had a conversation with the chief supply chain officer of one of the biggest retail discounter, and he confessed with this application format in front of him, only 60%, 60, is connected to Snowflake, her data lake. So basically 40% is not connected. Now, then you want to apply AI. It's very hard when you have 40% connected to your Snowflake data lake and 60% not. So that's getting back to your data structure, isn't it, Jasper?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I think you see some developments in the market that these data platforms, Snowflake, Databricks, what have you, and some of the bigger ERP data solutions, data platforms are more and more going to team up to, I think, have this for companies, right? This one integrated offering rather than silos. I'm putting it a bit black or white here, but as you would have it today, yeah.
You see SAP hooking up with Databricks on one hand,
so
that's in the ERP and the whole portfolio environment. But the other side, you see Blue Yonder, they covering the whole blue portfolio, I would say, but they also enhance it with a Snowflake data lake internally, also integrated. But it's also a lock-in, I think, to some extent. But basically, you have to be aware of that. But otherwise, when you look around, what is needed? So, Hans, do you take also into account these kind of data structures and partnership with this data lake vendors?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I don't know partnerships, but if you want to exploit your planning systems, your digital twins, and even more so when you are trying to exploit AI possibilities, you need data. It's a very motherhood statement, but I think it's essential. So, for example, the driver-based forecasting, trying to improve forecast using ML. will need data. If you don't get that available in some shape or form, then you might as well not bother. And what you find is that more and more companies use or have set up very effective data lakes where you can get all the data that you need. That, of course, is a super basis if that's available. If it's not there, then that either you need to integrate with all the source systems or need to set up the data lake yourself in the project. Because otherwise the AI is not going to be able to do anything better than the classical software, than the classical logic.
So I got a question, decision intelligence platform. So that's a new flavor. Gartner already has a Magic Quadrant about it, but Era Technologies is one of the leading companies. So basically, there are a lot of decisions being made within logistics, in procurement, in logistics, buy or not buy, this kind of decisions, and this kind of platform help to automate or even use agentic AI to automate these kind of day-to-day decisions. So you have different agents. So Unilever is using that kind of stuff. Maybe that's very detailed, but so that's in a nutshell data intelligence. So Hans, so getting back to the software selection. So what are the main angles to go for when you approach this?
Yeah, so this is a very standard slide that Jasper also more or less showed in a bit of a different shape. The only message here is that when we get involved in best fit software selection, I think what we try and do is focus to a high quality shortlist as soon as possible. And what that means is, if you look at the standard logic, you go through the long list, short list, etc. steps. You can spend ages on routes that you could have known very early in the project were going to be a dead end, because either the vendor there's not going to be a match, or it's going to be way too expensive, or the way they integrate doesn't work for you, or whatever. Functional part can be, but actually that's I think 90% of the functionality I think will be covered by most of the vendors. The way they do it can differ, but there's always going to be a number of sort of knockout criteria, and those can be functional because you have something specific that only a few can offer, or a vendor, I don't know, a vendor size, for example. If you're a multinational and you're looking at a very interesting functionality of a scale up, is that really going to be a serious candidate? Well, if so, great, but don't decide way at the end after you spend weeks on that offer, and then decide they're too small anyway, because you could have known it in the past. It's not going to change. So I think the only additional message to what we discussed already is that we can slice and dice very quickly in a very early stage in the selection process to make sure we focus on a number of options that are very realistic and can all do the job.
So another expectation is it do this vendor cover it all for your whole company?
Yeah, correct. So again, so this is a bit of a more detailed slide, but I think the functional part is still it's a qualifier. If the functional part there's no fit, then obviously it's not going to work. Now companies can be quite complex. So we're currently doing a selection process of a large cheese manufacturer, and they have a trading business, fairly straightforward, but they also do ripening themselves. They have a packaging part. They have all sorts of different companies almost, and you can be a bit can get a bit swamped by everything that you then need to specify. And so what we tend to do is we define specific product market combinations, do the functional requirements for those, making sure that you cover them all, and then you are going to find that within some of the PMCs we can get quite specific functional requirements that will help us to drive into the right direction when we start to select the software.
Okay. And Jasper, you are busy for one of the major retailers in the Netherlands, also internationally located, etc. And they have basically 3 product groups, so that's quite similar.
Yeah, so this framework would fit very well. And they serve 3 very distinct markets or product market combinations. And I think also to my previous point, so I think having a solution that fits with each of those three product market combination is where the challenge is, and I think that we see that in this particular case, but I think we see that in general. And where do you make concessions, right? And what type of workarounds are you willing to accept versus opening up the build discussion, right? Which is then quickly becomes your alternative, I would say. But very much agree with this approach as Hans presented it. I wanted to make one more remark on the previous slides, because I was just actually this morning talking to another to a lady who's actually running a software selection process for planning as well as we speak. And I think we both share these very hard and quantitative requirements, right? That you do that you put down when you do a selection process. But I think it's not. But in the last 3 or 4 processes that I've been involved in, it's often also very important, and the choice is typically also based to an extent on that as well. Is how does the vendor and the partner that's implementing, how does that culturally fit with the company itself? Because you typically start quite a long journey, sometimes 3 months, but maybe 2 years if it's a bigger implementation. And I think it's very important also to have that part included in the assessment. And I'm wondering, Hans, how you look at that as well, of course. But I find that these quantitative aspects still matter a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, your implementation partner will drive the quality of your implementation. So this is a super important aspect.
Yeah, and I always see, it's kind of a marriage, when you selecting a software vendor, you are married for at least 5 years. So you have to have a click at least, and maybe there is also an implementation partner involved, so that's a threesome. So basically, you have to be aware about all that. So Hans, with the rise of AI, is that changing all this?
Well, it is. It depends a bit on the, if you look at your portfolio map on the areas, the functional areas that you're looking at.
Yeah.
In our focus area, as you know, is advanced planning systems and digital twins. Mm-hmm. And yes, things are really changing. Maybe not even all that much from a functional point of view. To be honest, of course, there are developments, but actually that's rather more of evolutionary. But on the data handling side, on the user interfacing side, using LLMs, so things are changing quite rapidly. Also, the market is asking for things. So a software vendor that's not developing really quickly at this point in time is going to be obsolete very quickly. So because things are changing from a functional, but definitely also from a let's say the software aspects.
Maybe you can explain it briefly because we're running out of time with the 3 aspects of AI.
Yeah, so from a functional point, this is focusing on the advanced planning system area. Mm-hmm. So from a functional point of view, I think the main area where we do see changes is in forecasting, ML forecasting, using much more data than only your history. This is where at least you see important use cases that can perform better than the classical algorithms sometimes. Mm-hmm. But actually, I don't see a massive breakthrough in the functional area in planning.
Yeah.
But in how you use the systems, rather than clicking through all the screens, getting your user experience using natural language, using Gen AI to help you create analysis, do segmentation, whatever, all the decision support that you'll be looking for. So the way how you work with those systems, I think is starting to change now. Not always so successful, but that definitely is an area that in the next, it's going to be quick, is changing very rapidly. So this is definitely an area that we will be looking for. And then the last part, I think planners in general are always will be conservative to some extent, because they can only make, they are always at risk if they make mistakes. So if, for example, in forecasting, your AI forecast creates a forecast that you can't explain, I don't think I have ever met a planner that will dare to put that out in the open and say, I believe this is a forecast that I can trust. Your system will have to be able to explain why it came to that conclusion. Because otherwise it will never be adopted.
So basically, explainable AI is open up the black box and, offer me the forecast value add, so I can understand, so I can believe it, so I can embrace it.
I can trust it, and I can therefore will dare to use it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we're running really out of time. So to wrap up, basically this is what I created also 5 years back. Basically functionality is very important. We've seen that, but I think that a lot of companies are overemphasizing functionality. Of course, it's important, but there's way more. Technology on the right hand side. So are they built for the cloud? Is it cloud native, etc.? What is more important, I think, is the delivery part. I think that is quite often neglected to a large extent. So who is implementing? Is it the software vendor itself, implementation partner? Do they have people on the ground in the countries? Do they have experience in your industries and that kind of stuff? And finally, domain expertise, the knowledge. What do they know of my industry in retail? In a broader sense, the business functionality in retail or FMCG or chemicals. That's. So basically, I think not one magic quadrant should fit it, but you should fill out 4 quadrants per vendor with all these questions noted here and remarks to have an overview better like this. And finally, like I said, it's software selection is like selecting your new car. Maybe it's on-premise. Do they have the DNA in the on-premise environment, the traditional one? So you see some marks here. Or is it cloud native, the new kids on the block? How are they prepared for the future? What do they invest? You see new kind of cars. The upper right already out of business. So that's a warning sign. And basically, is your supply chain process mature enough to handle the new kind of software? So that's what I hear. Like I said, so we have running out of time, basically with all the questions I intersected already. So if you have more questions for one of us, please join us in a minute in the lounge. So we'll be sitting down at table 1 in the virtual lounge. There's more to download here. You can download stuff being mentioned here. And I would like to thank Hans for your participation. So thank you.
Thank you.
And Jasper, also thank you for joining.
You're welcome.
And and for the audience, either live or in the recording, thank you for watching. So I hope you liked it. So thank you for watching. If you want to know more, so please join us right after this in the lounge. And if not, I will take a short summer holiday and we'll be back in August for the next webinar. Thanks for now, and thank you, and bye-bye.